All right, Sheila, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Great.
All right. The time is 7 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here.
Pro Tem Hanrahan,
Here.
Trustee Bretnall,
Here.
Trustee Klassen,
Here.
Trustee Engelhardt,
Here.
Trustee Poston, Trustee Seifert.
All right. May we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated. Sheila, for the record, Trustee Poston just joined us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, the first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any emails or phone calls in regards to non-agenda items?
No, I did not hear from anyone today, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
I do not show any raised hands.
all right. Do we have anyone signed in the chambers?
We do. We have Denny Ray from 812 Home Avenue.
All right, Denny, come on up.
Won't be any 3 minutes either.
You got your 3 minutes, yes.
Denny Ray, 812 Home Avenue, Silt, Colorado, 81652. My question tonight is there going to be any kind of action or activity, the formal activity regarding the 8th Street improvements, or is that going to be following tomorrow's 5:30 to 6:30 meeting? That's my first question. Love to have an answer.
So usually during public comments, we don't respond.
Well, how do I get a response? Because that's really why I'm sitting, that's why I'm here.
Over here.
Okay, my other thing, as long as we're, the other thing was, I would really like to see the grant and have a sense of how restricted it is, and perhaps it needs to be revised. I don't have any idea since I've never even looked at it, so that's my other request.
Okay.
So, if anybody's got any answers or any way for me to proceed next, I'd appreciate them giving me advice on that.
Do we have any?
Call me tomorrow.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else signed up?
No.
Okay. All right. Moving right along then, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which contains the minutes of the June 9th, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting. Would anybody like to discuss that or make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, minutes of the June 9th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Clausen to approve the consent agenda, the minutes of the June 9th, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting. That was seconded by Trustee Poston. All's in favor? Aye. All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight?
No, sir.
None for me. Okay. Any agenda changes tonight by the board or by staff?
None here.
Okay. All right. Then we'll move right along to the interviews for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we are just going to start in the order that they are listed on the agenda, if that's okay with everybody. So first up would be Eddie Aragon. Coming up to the table. Yes. You on.
My name's Eddie Aragon. I live at 1315 Standing Deer Drive, Silt, Colorado, 81652.
Okay. All right. Do we have any questions for Eddie?
I have two, but they're the same for everyone, so the rest of you get a chance to study ahead.
Okay.
First, I want to say I've been trying to attend or listen in on a lot of the P&Z meetings as much as I reasonably can, and I find Eddie's participation to be great. His background as a professional construction project manager, he adds a lot of unique perspective. He asks a lot of really probing questions to developers and stuff, and I think that's really useful. He brings a really unique point of view to that group. That being said, Eddie, two quick questions. The first is, how do you balance competing land use interests in your role on P&Z? So commercial versus residential, things of that nature.
Well, I personally think that there has to be a, I'd like to see a little more commercial. We're seeing a lot of residential is what I'm seeing, mostly rentals. But with the commercial side, you see up valley and stuff, if you don't have that, really you can't support the town. I mean, a lot of it comes from commercial taxes and all that good stuff. So that's kind of one of the things that I find very important in bringing the right business to the community. It's kind of critical. I mean, we're starting to see a lot of movement this way just because of the cost of valley scooting this way. So it's kind of how I see things as far as my personal thoughts.
Okay.
How I balance it.
Second question, give us your definition of smart growth.
I think smart growth, in my mind, would be, have an equal balance. I mean, we really got to have. I mean, you're starting to see a lot of, like the events that you're starting to bring here, like Rislinda that we saw the other day. Something in the valley where people can have the, we all work up valley. I mean, I'd say 60, 70% of us work up valley, and when you get home, I mean, you want to have it where you can enjoy where you're at, and not be the huge rush, it's more of an equal balance of making sure you have a good family life, good style, and things to do where you enjoy it, and you don't mind staying here in the area. You don't have to travel up valley or, out of the area to enjoy it. I mean, starting to see a lot of good things there, and I'd like to continue to help do that.
Thank you.
And I have a question. Based on question 6, I noticed it wasn't filled out. But question 6 is, if appointed, what would you like to accomplish on the commission or board while you're involved? And my question is, because you've already been involved for 4 years, have you seen what you'd like to have accomplished happen? Or is that still, kind of down the road a ways?
I think it's still a moving target, just what's coming in, and, having an input on what's the proper way in growth, and seeing what works in the community and what don't. I mean, there's a couple items that, being on the planning and zoning, we saw that, we may have made some errors, such as the sign. A lot of people, first I didn't think about it too much. It's kind of in the initial phases of being on P&Z. And you really do see that, your voice does carry quite a bit of weight when you're trying to get this stuff approved, and learning more of, what this community needs, and kind of figuring all that good stuff out. So.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And the other question was, do you feel that you and the board have been successful in getting job accomplished the last
I truly do. I think so. I think we've really got a good group together that, there's different backgrounds, so everybody has, different parts that I don't see. Some more into the financing, the housing, and all that other good market. I see more of the construction side of it. Seeing what the constructability of stuff and what's the downsides of, some of the plans. You look at it and it's like, no, that's not going to work, or just want to make sure they're held accountable to, what they're putting out there, not trying to go on the short side. And, as far as the constructability and feasibility, to make sure that in the future it's going to work. It's not just a shortcut to get them in here, build something that, is not really where it should be.
Oh, okay.
And that's my thoughts.
All right. Thank you, sir. That's all I have.
I like that I like what you said about, keeping your eye on the moving target and sort of a data-driven approach, knowing what people need, that kind of thing. And you, like you said, you served and you know what the time commitment is, which is more generally, that's good if you can show up and participate. I think that's a plus as well. So those are my thoughts as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Trustee Poston?
I always like to ask, what's your vision for the town within, let's say, 5, 10, maybe 15 years? How do you see Silt from your perspective?
Well, I've been here since I was a kid, and been here over 30 years in the valley, and I'm starting to see the right type of growth. And I'd like to still see this as a bedroom community. I hate to see it completely just have the wrong kind of growth, and not have like a real I'm not real happy, right? Not happy, I can't say that word, as far as all the rental units and stuff, because I think you have a little bit more when you get involved, you have your own property and you really want to take care of it. You want to be part of the community. You want to, my kids, I want to raise them here, and we are raising them here, and I don't want them to stick around, but it's really getting hard for that, just the cost of living. So I'd like to be an area where, you can establish and really, get more where people and are able to talk to people and all that. You get, like even in Rifle. I was raised in Rifle for many years, and I go back there now and I don't know anybody. And really, it's kind of frustrating to me because I'm a pretty social person, and you see more of, smaller communities like Silt where you do know people and they're still kind of about the same. I mean, I'd like to see to continue to be that way and not be where we're just passing each other and, So that's kind of what I'd hope in 20 to 30 years, but,
Balanced growth.
it's just really hard to, the way the financial aspect of it is, how everything gets pushed down valley and all that good stuff. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Trustee Britto, anything?
I'm good. We just covered it kind of.
So I guess you want people to be, or you talked about less rentals, more owner occupied
Yes.
houses. So what are some tools you see P&Z can do to make that happen?
Just by, boy, when we do that and we review it, like the percentages that they, owner occupied as opposed to the rental. If there was a kind of a break, where we get more investment, because, you see these rental units and stuff, it's like you see Grand Junction, they're getting tons of that. They're nice at first, they're taking care of it first. And it's just one of those things where it really worries me because, 10, 15 years down the road, maintenance, upkeep, changes ownership a number of times. Pretty quick, you're not having it, where it's really nice and taking care of it. And I worry about the people, affordable housing and all that good stuff, and people that want to come here and build a family instead of just in and out and transient type of stuff. So,
Okay. All right. Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Eddie.
thank you.
Next up is Justin Anderson, but I don't see him here.
He is online this
On
evening.
the Zoom.
Okay.
He
All
was
right.
unable to attend in person.
Okay. Then let's, if we can unmute Justin.
He has.
Hi, sorry, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So if you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself to start with, and then we'll fire off the questions.
Well, I'm a transplant. I've been out in this area for about 3 years. I was born in New England. I've got a small business in Silt doing working cameras, and I also work up in Aspen doing smart home integration for a different company. I own a duplex in Rochester, New Hampshire, so I've been operating and maintaining that for a while. At some point, I would love to find something affordable with a little bit of land around it, but, we're all aware of the challenges of the valley, so it is difficult.
All right. Well, we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem again with this question.
You know the questions, Justin. How do you balance competing land use interests in your role with P&Z?
Well, I think having that meeting and discussing kind of a broad framework for a plan for Silt allows us to have like a matrix to hold projects up against and see if they align with the goals that we are looking to achieve as we grow and develop. And, just making sure that we are not just allowing, like Eddie was saying, apartment buildings, but trying to do the best that we can to encourage, anyone who is looking to build or rehab single-family units. It is challenging just because there's a lot of developers that have a lot of money that want to come in and buy things up sometimes and sometimes put lots together, sometimes buy big parcels and then subdivide and so it's just, my what I'd like to see in Silt is more, single family and less of these developments. I think that the goal for most people is not to rent a little box to live in, but to have a property with a lawn and a backyard and a piece of property that they can improve and start a family and live there without paying someone else for the rest of time. And then with businesses, we've got a lot of businesses that are kind of serving the broader community, but personally, I would love to see some businesses that support the local community more directly, like childcare and more brick and mortar restaurants, things that are for the people that live there. I also want to encourage people to visit Silt, but I think the priority of the Planning and Zoning Commission should be to the people that are residents of Silt primarily, and if we can foster growth and develop commercial properties that align with our vision, I think that that's important. But the primary focus for me is honestly trying to find a way to encourage single-family housing and business infrastructure that directly supports residents.
And second question is, how do you define smart growth?
Well, smart growth is growth with a plan, because there's parts of Glenwood that you can clearly see the people that were overseeing the development at that time were not anticipating future growth 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the future. When they make certain decisions about parking allotment and other types of infrastructure that support growth, you have to not just look at what the town looks like right now, but try and think about what do we want in the future and make sure that we're carving out enough space and resources so that there is room if the population increases for people to park at the business. Like let's say Silt, where it's at right now, we've got enough parking at a business, but if the town grows and has a larger population in the future, having a parking lot that's too small can really hinder a business and its ability to serve the community if no one can find a place to park.
Great, thank you.
So you're welcome.
All right.
I had a quick question on your answer to question 7. What do you believe could be a concern or issue facing the commission or board? You basically said overdevelopment of certain types of businesses. Could you just elaborate on that some?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, we've kind of talked about a little bit of, careful thought as far as more storage units being developed in the area. I mean, this is what I'm talking about businesses that aren't necessarily there to support Silt exclusively. It's creep from more expensive areas up valley where the developer doesn't want to develop at a certain cost per square foot up in Aspen. They want to develop at Silt cost per square foot. So we're getting a lot of people that want to have these businesses, but they want to put them out in Silt because it makes more financial sense for their business plan. But Silt is not a repository for people that can't afford to develop a business up valley. Again, it should be carefully considered whether this is something, do we want to be a storage unit community? I don't really think so. And another one would be food trucks. And another one would frankly be, these multi-unit developments that are done by big developers who may or may not be done with the interests of the people in the community at heart. So, just being a little bit of a voice of reason as far as, not everybody in Colorado can come build these types of businesses in Silt, because that's not what we want to turn into, is just a town that has 3 types of businesses, and we've got 10 or 15 of those types of businesses.
Okay, thank you, sir. I
Yep.
don't have any more questions.
Okay.
I think your bio's cool, and I think that your responses are strategic but straightforward, and I think that's good.
Thank you.
All right. Trustee Poston?
Justin, with your ideal, you've mentioned a lot of the things that you don't want to see happen in Silt. So how would you describe your ideal distribution between housing and commercial spaces, multifamily unit? How would that look like in your perspective?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, certain things are very difficult to undo, like approving a piece of farmland being subdivided for a big developer. Personally, I like that Silt has farmland. So it's things like, it's just competing interests, right? We've got a local community, and then there's people out there that want to make money that are from various parts of the world. And those people with a business plan may want to come into Silt and develop a large apartment complex or buy up farmland because it's affordable for their budget. But it does diminish, what's kind of the charm of Silt is you can go buy beef up the road, and there's farmers that have large pieces of land and they grow various different things and have different types of livestock on their property. So I want to allow growth, but I don't want to allow growth that is going to change the spirit of the local community in a drastic way. Obviously one of the things that is difficult for single family people that want to purchase a single family home is in today's market, you're competing with private equity. In 1 out of 8 purchases is done by private equity. And those are homes that are going to an investment portfolio for residual income for a corporation. And as long as there's no more property being minted, I don't think those prices are going to go down, and I don't think those assets are going to be released off of their balance sheet as an income property. So it's stuff like that where once you allow a corporate, let's say we had a developer that came in that wanted to build a 10-story building with 300 units, that would be something where we would want to have a public hearing, and we want to get feedback from the community, engage whether people are desperate enough for housing to allow something like that to come in, because I think that would be a drastic departure from what Silt currently is like. It is not an overly developed town that has a 5-story building in its skyline. It's kind of rustic and small, and it's an intimate community. So it's, again, we come up with a plan for where we want to go. If we want to turn into a city and the population wants that, then I'm just one guy. I'm not trying to really impose what I want. I do want to steward the plan with the support of the local community. I hope that answered your question.
It does. Thank you, Justin.
Yep.
Trustee Britton? No? Okay. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and keep it fair and ask the same question. So what do you see would be beneficial to create more affordable housing?
I wish that I could tell you something that I thought the Planning and Zoning Commission could do. I don't know enough about the town's finances to know if it would even be in the budget to do something like some sort of a break on a tax rate versus developers and shift some of the cost onto the people that are making income from the community. Adjusting tax rates, I think that's beyond the planning and zoning level, but shifting the burden of taxation more onto the people that are profiting from the community and off of the people that are just trying to survive. That's really the only thing that I can even think of at the Planning and Zoning Commission. The problem is a lot more to do with corporation and the corporatization of America, and the fact that these things have been given the same rights as citizens, but they don't have the limitation of a lifespan like a normal citizen does. So these things just grow and grow and grow, and as their pockets get fuller and fuller, ours get emptier and emptier, and it just is kind of the way the system works, sadly. So that's the best I can do as far as something we could do at our level is something like a little bit of assistance to somebody who is going through trying to purchase or build something, and just trying to give them a little bit of a break, even if it was temporary, just for a couple of years at the beginning for them to get established.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. I think that's all the questions. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I've, been in some meetings with you guys, so I think you've heard some of the things I've got to say, and I think I'll just let that stand on its own.
All right. Well, thank you for making sure you could join us remotely at least. So, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Apologize I can't make it in person.
All right. No problem. All right. Next up, we got Jack Ellers.
Evening, everyone. Jack Ehlers, 765 Antler Point Lane. Good to see you all in person again. It's so much better than watching you on YouTube, I have to admit. I guess we'll start with your questions. It's probably easiest instead of letting me ramble on.
Works for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Fire away.
How do you balance competing land use interests, or how would you balance competing land use? Again, residential versus commercial is
Sure.
the typical example.
Well, that's the ultimate thing. It's got to be a balance. What that balance truly looks like, I think there's a lot of different ideas and a lot of different viewpoints. I feel like right now the town of Silt's in a bit of a transition. I mean, we're talking about rebranding. We're trying to remember who we are. I'm with Justin. I love the ranch lands out behind my place. I love being in this neighborhood for those reasons. I love driving to Harvey and not seeing a bunch of big developments. I enjoy this community the way it is. Now, does that mean we're not going to develop? Absolutely not. I think we need to get more commercial in. I think it's important for a lot of different reasons. We're talking about the whole financial landslide that seems to come down valley this way. Home prices are going up. Everything's going up. It's getting harder and harder to work and stay in the area. I think being able to provide more local jobs would be huge. Good opportunities. But I also think that with that price kind of changing things, I think some of the things we may have thought 5 years ago not being feasible is becoming more and more feasible as well. But again, smartly. We got to let local, if possible, developers flourish, in my mind. And not to say that we're going to hold different scrutinies to different developers, because that would be, in my mind, a level of bias that probably going to get us in trouble. But the fact of the matter is, I want to find a way to encourage more development here, particularly in the commercial area, from local people that want to start and make a living here locally. That's the ultimate goal in my mind. As far as the balance towards residential, we have been getting apartment buildings going up like crazy, and this will probably lead into a question down the road, but right now, there's not a great answer to affordable housing, and some of those rentals is the best thing we can do. I'm not convinced I have any bright ideas that someone else hasn't already thought of when it comes to affordable housing. That is a tough nut to crack. I don't really feel like that's where our focus should be. I think we should be bringing in more businesses that make the local economy flourish more. Salaries go up, the housing becomes more affordable. So I think there's a really important need to balance, and right now I see a great need for more commercial, and encouraging people to create businesses here, and that are more unique to our area, instead of just, I don't think anyone here wants a Lowe's, right? I don't think that's the direction we want to go in. But we want to keep our culture that we have here, because it's great, and we're one of the last bastions, in my mind, in the valley of keeping our culture. So a lot of tough questions. Is there the answer laid out in front of me? No. But at the same token, I'm here in hopes to be a part of this transition, or we're going to start looking at changing codes. We're going to start looking at what are we trying to put Silt into in the next 20 years with the rebranding and the ideas. I want to be a part of that, because while I have my own vision of what I'd love to see Silt, really become, it's not a magic wand. I don't get that. And in the end, I'm not here to put my bias heavily on the board. I'm going to be hearing from the trustees, the plan we're going with, what we want our codes to look like, and what we want our culture to look like. And I'll have my personal bias. Obviously, everyone who holds a seat here has their personal bias in there. But in my mind, I'm hoping to limit that, because I'm going to be here to serve the people more than anything else.
You actually answered both my questions, so I'm good.
All right.
Okay.
Thorough.
And I have a question. How do you feel about the town's code? Is it too onerous, or, do we kind of hold the line with the town's code, in front of an applicant or something, or do we kind of give a lot, or is it kind of a combination of?
I think it's a combination for sure. My own personal experience. I put in my land use app. I came in front of P&Z, and I came in front of you guys. Everyone seemed to agree with exactly what I wanted to do. And it was a very, in my mind, a simple, straightforward decision. Everyone pretty much unanimously agreed with what I was trying to do. I did run into some hiccups just trying to get the plat filed. So it's a combination. I think there's things we can work on that makes things a little easier. And I think as long as we're following the heart and the intent of the P&Z and the board of trustees as well, we'll get there. And sometimes we're going to review code, and this is the transition. We're going to change some of those things.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's all I have.
I appreciate your commitment to the community, and and then talking about like retaining town employees, creating a prosperous life here, stuff like that. I think that's great. Yeah, and responding to issues with sincerity. I think that's all really good. Much appreciated.
Sincerity is key. Some people I work with find it to be my worst quality, and then some that I work with the closest find it to be my best quality. You always know what I'm thinking. Some people love that. Some people find that to be a little brandish. So, but it's always with sincerity.
People like to know, I think, where they stand with you when you're sitting here and they're asking you questions. So that's probably good for this.
Agreed.
Jack, you mentioned in your application you're a family man, you have 2 kids. As far as development, you mentioned some of the commercial side. Thinking of you as a family man, person, what would you like to see more of for your growing kids in town and less of as we move on towards the next few, 5, 10, 15 years?
Right. I stick with the idea of trying to build more commercial, more businesses. I want to grow the economy, because one of the great things about Silt is our party at the pavilions, our movie in the park. We have so many good community gatherings that me as a family man can bring my kids to, and we all get to enjoy and we get to interact with neighbors and people that live farther than just my subdivision, which is a rarity for how busy I am. So in my mind, if we're bringing in more commercial and we can grow the economy in that direction and build a tax base based on a little bit better, in my mind, bringing in the homes that have the property taxes, we're going to be able to afford to do more of those things. And then we can start developing more parks where we're having possibly even sports, complexes type thing. I look at that whole area in Glenwood, up in Redlands Parkway area where they built all those apartment buildings that will fall to the ground. I already know. That was a perfect, ample opportunity to build a giant sports complex. They're right at a fork in some major travel. They could have brought in so much revenue by just making it a sports park. sports in this valley, in the Eagle Valley, west, kid sports are rising. They've never been hopping as much as they are right now. I think that could have been a great move. And that was just, in my opinion, not the best decision. And I could see us at Silt, well, maybe we're not right at a good fork. We're right on the I-70 corridor, and we could attract an awful lot of the right kind of people, families that are coming for their sports. The people we want to see in our neighborhood, you know, not worrying about the transients as much. We want to see families that are going to come, they're going to eat at our restaurants, maybe they're getting a hotel stay for the night, but they're going to start partaking in the economies that we have here locally. So I guess in time, I think that's a long ways away, but eventually I would hope that we have more of that.
Excellent. Yeah, it's great to keep the mind of our youngsters, you know, motivated in sports and getting families united through that too. I completely concur with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin? Oh, you're good. You're good on all of it.
I'm just listening tonight, just taking a bunch going on and taking in,
Awesome.
so.
You
You're
already-
all asking
yeah.
good questions, so I can just kind of ride the coattails.
Right, the coattails? Okay. You already answered my question about affordable housing. You know, the honest answer is there. You don't know the answer. So,
Right.
so thank you. Yeah, and thanks for applying.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for your
All right.
time.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Jen, and I'm not even going to try and destroy your last name. So,
That's all good.
what is your last?
Yeah, Jennifer Gigerelli, 1830 Fawn Court, Silt, Colorado, 81652.
All right, so a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am a first-time homeowner, new to Silt, and with that, I wanted to apply to the Planning and Zoning Commission because, yeah, I am planning to start my family here. I want to be invested in this community for the long term, and elsewise in my professional life, I am involved in policy work. I just feel like I have a strong sense of civic duty that draws me to this kind of thing. And yeah, I just kind of have become a total nerd for public policy. And so I was excited to put forth my application.
All right.
Yeah.
Fire away.
I can ask them again if you'd like.
Yeah, would you mind reminding me, Mayor Pro Tem?
Of course.
Thank you.
How do you balance competing land use interests?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I feel like I resonate with a lot of the previous applicants' answers. I think in reviewing the town's comprehensive plan, I think it's really thoughtfully put together and then informs kind of the way that you district the zoning. And so I think there's a really great foundation to build on. I think things like multi-use permitting and allowing for, you know, like special use permit applications, things like that allow some flexibility, some layering of competing interests. And then otherwise, I would echo to everything that's been said. It'd be nice to see a little bit more robust commercial development, things that foster more, you know, small businesses, mom and pop shops, things that keep money circulating in a more local economy here.
Second question is about smart growth, but I'd like you to be a little more specific toward agriculture, given your profession and expertise.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, I guess to start with smart growth, my understanding of it and kind of like the development perspective is and I see it again represented in the comprehensive plan where you're kind of like focusing on that core of development and then building out from there and having like these tiered development plans, things like that. And so smart growth, as I understand it, really prioritizes town character, efficient use of resources, and with that, you know, like mitigating things like sprawl. And so, you know, keeping, again, that core development, which I think leads into preservation of our open lands, our agricultural spaces, and the broader natural resources that we have available in our community. And that's a really big reason why people want to live here, because of the beautiful place that we're situated in. I think also things like, you know, maintaining like the walkability of our town, fostering that, public transportation, minimizing the traffic. I mean, all of those things just lead to, yeah, I don't know, less smog, less environmental impact, all of these things. And by extension, all of that does wind up impacting the surrounding rural areas and agricultural areas, things like that. Yeah. And while I will be unbiased in my potential role with the commission and examining, all the uses that come forward, of course, I do really value agricultural and rural and open spaces, and think we need to be really conscientious of our growth, that we're not encroaching upon those and losing a really important part of kind of our Western Slope heritage that shaped this area.
Thanks.
One of your concern or issues facing the commission or board is water resource management and infrastructure. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, it's just been interesting to kind of listen along with different board meetings and things like that and hear about the development of the water plant and again, with thinking about, bringing in more residences, bringing in more commercial businesses, all of that takes water. And so just understanding that we are in a water-stressed area and an increasingly water-stressing climate, I think it's just another thing to take into consideration when we're thinking about feasibility of projects and things of that nature, making sure that we're responsibly putting forward development that's not going to exacerbate that further. Can we maintain growth in terms of that?
Okay, thank you. And how do you feel about the town's code? Is it too onerous? Is it what we want, or does it need to be
I
more
read through
or
that
less,
whole code in preparation for applying and considering it. And I mean, yes, it's onerous. It's a code. It's a town code. It's policy. It's verbiage that isn't always the easiest to understand, and you have to read a sentence 3 times to get it. But at the same time, I think the code is what it is for really important reasons, and it can be very protective to have sometimes slightly onerous language and down to like the dirty details of things. Unfortunately, I think ways that we might be able to mitigate some of our like public interacting with the code is, I think it's great that we have a town staff and town attorney who can so clearly explain the aspects of why things are the way they are and what, pathways you need to take to approach different applications, things like that. And so, I think just kind of supporting the public through navigating it is really important, and maybe having a mind to see where we can streamline things reasonably while still maintaining integrity and safe holding our development.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
I enjoyed the thoughtfulness and nerdiness of your answers. And, things like navigating regulatory systems and coalition building and stuff like that. That's good thought process. And it sounds like you understand sort of building the downtown helps to prevent sprawl, and it actually helps with the agriculture. So it's not just all about one or the other. So I like that.
Yeah, they can be complementary and support each other, and
Okay, Jen, sounds like you have an amazing background and you bring a wealth of knowledge, and sounds like you're 100% invested, and we are very appreciative for all of the applications. My question to you is, as like working with developers, sometimes you follow a certain code, and you need to allow the department, the development to move forward, but you also need to have the measures, whatever it is achieved by the engineers, whatever is acceptable by, whatever portion of it is responsible for. How do you foresee overcoming certain challenges between policy and implementation when dealing with developers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it makes a lot of sense that a lot of serving commissioners on the board are involved in things like construction and development directly, because it gives you that wealth of knowledge. And certainly, I think we have a really great town staff and attorney to lean on for navigating some of that. And then some of it is I would just have to do my homework. I think that is like maybe a weakness that I have, but I think I'd overcome it in just excitement for the role and wanting to be involved and do a good job. And so I think I would just, put in the work to better understand that. I'll read the sentence 3 times to get what it means, and I'll look up the words that I don't and make sure that I'm staying on top of things.
I think it's really great, because sometimes you will get a development proposition for a town, for example, for someone that's really invested within the town and wants to do something great, but it's not necessarily something that's financially beneficial. But then if you hit so many roadblocks and then you can't, move forward, I feel that that's a loss on the town. So just, being on that planning and zoning commission with the broad understanding of who you're working with, what type of development it is, and keeping an open mind while also following the rules, I think is super important as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think that speaks to, again, the onerous nature of some of these things are there for a reason. But luckily, I think that also lends to then pretty in-depth reports, feasibility reports, things like that. Like we have such a wealth of information brought ahead of us to consider. So I think it's putting forth just the effort and attention to,
Excellent.
to understand
Thank you.
it. Yeah.
I just want to give you your opportunity. Okay, all right. Do you have any ideas about policy changes, code changes to make affordable housing easier to obtain?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And again, I'm a first-time homeowner here in Silt. We moved here from Up Valley because it was more attainable, but we've really loved to live here because of the feel of the town, the small town feel, and I joke about getting away from kind of like the Up Valley riffraff and just like the straight tourism economy that's there. I really like this kind of more like working class small town feel, and I think that's why people do love to live here and want to stay here, and I know it certainly is why I do. And so, it's a hard question of balancing, certainly we need some of everything. And so rentals can be important, but it was really important for me to be able to access like a single use home. That's where I wanted to build a family and have the space to do so. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I know I've seen maybe some approaches where if there is a development of an area requiring developers to have some percentage of that be set aside for affordable housing, or applying additional fees to developers if that percentage isn't met. I think there's always tax incentives and things like that. Of course, then you get into difficulties with what the budget is. And then, of course, similar to what the other applicant said, a lot of this falls outside of the direct responsibilities, I think, of the Planning and Zoning Commission. But I know for myself and my spouse, having something at the state level like CHAFA, the first-time homeowners program, where we got some education, we got some support for a down payment. I think some creative approaches like that help people move into that sphere can be considered if it's always in line with the budget, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else you'd like to end with?
No, thank you so much for your consideration. It'd be a really exciting opportunity for me. I feel like I've done a lot of management, nose on the ground and farms and ranches, and then I've done a lot at the state and federal level, but I would just be super excited to have an opportunity to be involved in this more municipal town level. I lived rurally for a long time, so living in a town now, I'm I can finally go be nosy and get involved. And so, I just really appreciate your time and consideration and the work that you all do.
Thank you very much. All right. And next up, Jennifer Stepiznik.
Hey.
Stepiznik.
So actually, I think my vision and focus since I walked in here has changed, and I would like to respectfully withdraw my application. So, thank you.
Okay.
I hope you guys have a good night.
All right.
Thank you, and I guess thank you for your 4 years of service on
I don't think it was
P&Z.
actually 4. I think it was only 2.
Or 2.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
2.
Thank you.
Okay. So we were appointing 3 regular and 1 alternate, is that what?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Did you say 3 regular and 1 alternate?
Yeah. Trying to get back up to top.
Yeah, the way the Planning and Zoning Commission is structured, there are 5 members with 2 alternates. And in this round, there are 3 regular members being appointed and 1 alternate.
Well, obviously, we have 4 vacancies and 4 people.
Yep. So we have to appoint 3 sitting members and 1 alternate.
Well, I don't think it would be fair for the 2 current members to be an alternate. Unless
Okay.
you guys think, or the 3 sitting members. I don't think it'd be fair for them to be an alternate. So it would have to be one of the other two.
There's only 2 sitting members left applying now because Jennifer just.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Jennifer withdrew. So.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, Justin and Eddie, let me just say that. Justin
There you
and
go.
Eddie, I don't think it would be fair to have them as an alternate.
Well, I think it's also not so much even a fairness thing as it is the value of the experience of already sitting
Yeah.
in there, being
That's what I
involved in
mean.
the process
Yes.
and all those things. I'm just phrasing how I see it.
Yeah.
They know the staff well.
I know I've
They
been
know
quiet until now, so
the
now it's my
procedures
turn.
well.
Yeah.
I think that, having that experience on there and having people that have been working with the staff, working with the rest of the board already, has some ideas of what's going on, some of the things going on. It would definitely make sense to have those two be the primary, obviously. I think that we're really lucky this time. We had a lot of great applicants. I think that's part of the reason why Jennifer stepped away was because she's been involved and she's doing it. And I think she applied because she wanted to make sure that it was being taken care of. But when you see quality there, she felt like, you know what, it's in good hands, I can walk away. And so that's nice to have that option, because we don't always have that option. Sometimes here in Silt, we're like, we've got 5 seats, we got 4 people. This time we had extra, which is great.
Great.
As far as listening to the interviews, I think that Jen's enthusiasm, her detailed, and also her experience of being on multiple boards and different things would be great to have as this other sitting member, I believe. And then having Jack would be the alternate, would be my preference.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by trustee Brittenall to appoint Eddie, Justin, and Jen as the sitting members of the board, and Jack as the alternate. Seconded by trustee Clausen.
Yes.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so did you guys get that? Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for applying, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
One other point that I would like, and I put it in my memorandum, I think that we should change the makeup of the Planning and Zoning Commission to include 7 sitting members. Because the alternate is expected to be at a meeting
Even
when
though
they
they
may
can't
or may
vote,
not be
yeah.
able to vote on something. And so I think the town would be better served by modifying the section dealing with planning and zoning makeup and change it that all members would be full voting members.
I agree 100%.
So Attorney Sawyer, is there any reason why it is that way, or was it just a?
You're a home rule municipality. You can constitute your planning and zoning commission.
Because it doesn't, I agree with the town manager, it doesn't make sense to have
That's
2 people vote
hold-
sometimes, but not other times, depending
Maybe-
on who happens to show up.
Yeah, maybe it was like low participation means you have a 7th alternate as a tiebreaker if you need a tiebreaker, maybe.
It makes it
might-
easier
maybe
to
that's
have a
why
quorum.
they-
It makes
Sometimes they have
by
a
one
reason.
person.
Right.
Because you go from 3 to 4.
So it's logistics.
But if you have 7 people within the rotation anyways, getting 4 people for a quorum should occur on most occasions, I guess
Yeah.
would be the way to phrase that.
Especially with the ability now of, if someone had to, as Justin did this evening, doing the virtual and different things, it makes it much easier to get a quorum.
I think that we should change it like you said.
Okay.
I
agree
would
with
ask
that.
your community development director her thoughts on that.
I am on board with 7-member board.
Okay.
Okay.
We will prepare an ordinance for your consideration to that effect.
Okay. So that would mean, Jack, you're an alternate for a short period of time, potentially. Okay.
Coming off the bench.
Coming off the bench, yes. Okay. All right, well, thank you for everyone that applied and for being here tonight, yes. Okay. Next up is ordinance number 5, series 2025, an ordinance approving a major subdivision final plan, final plat, and PUD amendment for the Rislinda planned unit development. I will turn this over to Director Centeno.
Yes, thank you.
Do we want to have the applicants come on up to the table, or?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right.
Alrighty, so tonight we have Rislinda in front of the trustees. They've applied for a final plat / plan. a PUD amendment, and then an SIA and an errata. The action item tonight is just going to be the PUD. Everything else was added into the packet just for the trustees to get eyes on before that actually comes in front of you for voting at the next meeting on July 14th. So the PUD application was presented to the commission on May 6th, where it was continued and recommended for approval to the Board of Trustees on June 3rd. The items that the Planning and Zoning Commission asked us to further discuss when it was continued included the minimum commercial square footage. There was an understanding or a conception from town staff that there was going to be additional commercial square footage within the development. When I had read the mixed use, I assumed that it was going to be commercial on the bottom, residential on top, and there was a couple slideshows that were presented early on indicating something similar. That was a concept. The applicant had since clarified that there was going to be residential and then an element of commercial throughout the development or parcel as a whole. And so we had to look at what that looked like within the comprehensive plan and try to find a better balance of commercial and residential, which we feel as if we got as close to accomplishing as we could with the development on tract 3 having 10,000 square feet of commercial, and then changing 3 of the 4 tracts that were considered mixed use commercial to residential only. And then the second item was parkland dedication and what those requirements were. The applicant, as part of their PUD amendment, has requested an increase of residential. As we just talked about, that also increased the amount of parkland dedication required, and so we were working on what that looked like. And then the third one was approving or amending the uses within the PUD from a use by right to a special use. And that's mainly the manufacturing, just so that everybody can make sure that it's the right kind of manufacturing or use that would be within it's primarily residential now, more so than commercial. Then after further discussion leading up to the second meeting, the Planning and Zoning did recommend the approval with the conditions that were listed in the staff report. And I apologize that we missed getting the P&Z minutes in the packet, but I did provide those on your laptops this evening if you wanted to further review.
That's right, I found them on the website, so I did read those. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, and they were also in the P&Z packet that was sent out Thursday. And then tonight, the board is the final decision maker. You can approve with conditions, deny, or continue the application. Please note that the trustee's role is to determine whether the application fits within our governing documents, such as our comprehensive plan and Silt Municipal Code. Town staff did go into detail within the packet on the 3 items, giving a little bit more information than the recap that I just gave. The request has been extremely time consuming and not without challenge. So the gravity of the request to increase the amount of residential versus commercial has triggered a lot of meetings, a lot of trying to figure out how the puzzle pieces fit within the comprehensive plan and our code and what that looks like. And it's, triggered conversations about parkland dedication, among other things. And town staff believes that we are as close as we're going to get to an agreement with the applicant, and as close to meeting the comprehensive plan as we can within the realm of what they're looking to accomplish. And so with that being said, I'm going to give a quick overview on staff findings and planning recommendation. And then I wasn't going to go into any greater detail, assuming that everybody has read the packet, but I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has questions. So overall, town staff would like to thank our engineer, our staff, our attorneys, as well as the applicant's team, as we've all spent endless hours on this proposal trying to figure out how to accommodate the additional housing unit request. And as I said earlier, this is a request that has triggered an increase in parkland dedication and less commercial square footage, and trying to figure out how that fits within the governing documents. The project does not completely align with the town's comprehensive plan, but does bring other elements that are beneficial to the town, such as a multifamily and single-family housing, a restaurant with the proposal of a market and meeting room and commissary kitchen within the restaurant, short-term lodging, an event center, and minimum square feet of 10,000 commercial space, including the restaurant within Tract 3 that's going to be considered the Rosalinda Commercial Hub. Overall, I do believe that the conversations have been productive and led to innovative ideas on how we can help this growth and development take fruition in the town. Town staff does recommend approval of the PUD amendment, which is going to be Ordinance 5, Series 2025, with the following conditions, with number 1 being that all representations made in writing, the application, and spoken verbally are going to be upheld, and then number 2, that the applicant provides any additional requested documents and pays all fees. Number 3, that the parkland dedication of the island be satisfied by deed and not easement. The trail system adjacent to the river frontage road, County Road 311, and their interconnecting trail between tracks 3 and 4 that lead to County Road 311 shall be satisfied by easement. Number 4, that the trail system improvements be completed within 24 months of final plat. Number 5 is that the changes made by town staff to the attached PUD guide be final. Number 6, that all remaining engineering be addressed and approved by the town engineer prior to final plat recordation. Number 7, that all Colorado Department of Transportation requirements be met prior to final plat. Number 8 is that all the fire department requirements be met prior to final plat. And then number 9 is that any other referral agency requirements are met prior to final plat. Number 10 is that each track will require a site plan review as stated in the PUD, including the island. And then number 11 is that this approval is not for construction and that all improvements will require a permit through the Community Development Department. And as part of the PUD, it also requires the site plan review. As stated in 10, I do have a recommended motion of approval. This is a 2-reading ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
I don't have any at the moment, but I'm sure I will before it's over with.
I think I heard you reading, so Silt River Preserve would be by deed to the town of Silt. I just want to...
So they have a required parkland dedication that instead of taking almost 3 acres of developable land, the town was willing to accept a more passive parkland dedication in lieu of the active parkland dedication, which is part of the island that separates within Rosalinda. I don't know if Sheila, can you find the zoning map?
And that's parcel 8A. And so then, is there going to be a sidewalk, a pedestrian access on the north end? I know that's maybe a separate question.
So there is a trail on Tract 4 that does mirror that boundary line along with the, like, between 8A and 4.
Okay, and so that's the south side of the property.
It's the south side of, near
Okay.
the channel.
And that's really cool. And then the north side is where the frontage road is? Is there a sidewalk there?
There is a bike path Yes.
Okay, okay.
And in the negotiations we've been having with the applicants, one of the proposed requirements in the subdivision improvement agreement would be that a bridge also be developed from Tract 4 over to Tract 8A. And one of the items we've been talking about with them, and we'll eventually bring back to you, but could get some feedback on today, is that facility would then qualify for reimbursement of you have parkland dedication and you have park improvement fees for the facilities on the park, and they're both governed by different formulas as to how much you're required to input, and that the bridge would be an offset towards the park improvement fees.
I see, okay. I think it's gonna be cool.
So if that parkland, that 1.5 acres?
2.5.
2.5?
Roughly.
That will be deeded to the town, not through AVLT.
That is correct. The discussions at the P&Z, I think, crystallized that the obligation to provide parkland dedication really contemplates, except for in unique circumstances, what we call as lawyers a fee dedication, actual ownership of the land. As is discussed in the staff memos, the parkland dedication for this development is split. For the active parkland dedication, there is a credit being given for the dedication of the easement along the frontage road for the bicycle or multi-purpose trail. And so that is approximately 1.5 acres, which will count toward the active parkland dedication together with the dedication of parcel 8A.
And is that the frontage road or the river that you're talking about?
That's the frontage road.
Okay.
So under your parkland dedication code provisions, there is both an active parkland dedication and a passive dedication. And the passive dedication is actually very generously fulfilled through the dedication of parcel 9, which is the river. And the passive dedication requirement is 20%, not of the total land area, but of the parkland area. And it turns out the parcel 9 is substantially larger than what would ordinarily be required for passive parkland dedication.
Yeah, okay.
So that Tract 8A will be controlled by the town, not the developer. So it'll be open to every citizen in this town to go.
Tract 8A, the way that we have structured it, and I think laid it out in the staff memo, is it will be deeded to the town. There will be 2 layers of control. There's the zoning, and today you have the zoning ordinance in front of you, which does have some language specific to Tract 8A that we can talk further about. Then there's the park code. So you have general ordinances, open times, closed times, can you bring alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. And the combination of the zoning plus the park code is what will regulate the use of Tract 8A.
Okay. My other question is, how did we arrive at the number of 10,000 square feet for Tract 3 of commercial space?
That is a good question. The applicant had suggested 8,000, the town had countered with 12, and then the applicant came back saying that they could make 10,000 come to fruition as a floor.
Okay, and that 10,000 though includes the restaurant?
It would include the 4,500 square foot to 5,000 square foot restaurant, yes.
Okay, so we're really talking about, because I don't know, the project works out, the 5,000 square foot restaurant, whether that's the developers or whether that gets sold to somebody else or what. So we're actually talking about potentially only 5,000 square feet of commercial space available to someone outside of the development? Okay.
Although it should be noted that that is specific to Tract 3.
Right.
And there are commercial elements to tracks 5 and 6 as well.
And are they limited in size, a minimum square footage of commercial on those two parcels, or those two
No,
tracks?
tract 5 is the lodging that they were proposing to put a 16-room hotel.
We don't have a baseline number, but
Okay.
yes.
That's the last.
Multi.
That's the last one that was thrown out at the planning commission, was a 16-room hotel, but some form of lodging
Okay.
to support the event center, and tract 6 is the event center.
Okay, so now I'm gonna get real confused here, because we just heard that we don't have an idea of the lodging size, but we have a traffic study showing 25 units to do the traffic study based off of.
Right. Once again, we don't have a final number for that lodging. I mean, we contemplate cabins and then a hotel. I don't know what the square footage is or like the number of units, but it is definitely in the double digits. Like,
Okay. I also see going from, and anyone else feel free to jump in at any time, 160 residential units to 247 is a huge, massive, in my opinion.
Isn't it
Massive.
240? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Isn't it 240 or is it 247?
247.
It is okay because
Yeah.
I saw a 240 in there.
that's the allowable under it. What we have said is that we,
That's
right
what's
now it's 216.
Nothing on 3. So
What-
it's not 247.
Mitchell.
Mitchell.
So here's what I would tell you. Right now, the Page West, the developers are contemplating 216 units on it. We also have 7 units of single-family home on Tract 7, and then any residential that would go on Tract 3 would require commercial underneath it, but that is not anticipated as being what I guess it's a 16 or 24 unit differential because of parking requirements and everything. We have thought possibly about workforce housing for the event center or anything like that coming at a later date, but it would be nowhere near 24 units.
Okay.
I mean, tract 3, to be honest, Mr. Mayor, is not big enough to host, just parking requirements why, it just can't deal with that.
Okay. Where I'm going with this is parkland dedication. The town gave up a pedestrian underpass under the bridge or under the county road. At some point in this whole process, the 2 times that came up, I voted no on the ordinances at that point. We're going to put more people over there, more people walking. I think it is very important that that portion comes back to this project.
It's not tenable, Mr. Mayor.
It's not tenable because it's an expense.
No, actually, it's
Underwater.
because of seasonally, it's underwater
We
r-
discussed that we
regularly.
could go north of the bridge and go under the county road instead of going under the bridge. An 8x14 concrete culvert underneath the road is feasible north of the bridge. Under the bridge may not be. Glenwood Canyon has a bike path through it that goes underwater part of the year and it's not usable. There's no reason why we can't have a bike path or a path in Silt that may not be usable part of the year because it's underwater. So not tenable it's expensive. Me personally, I'm on this board to get the best for the citizens of this town. And cutting something out because a developer doesn't want to put it in is not the best for the citizens. So, with that, I will be voting no on this and sticking to the original plan, or voting for a continuance to open up further negotiations with the town.
I'm going to respectfully disagree. I think that, I mean, I read this packet. I think that they have negotiated a lot. I feel like it does reflect their stated intent to respect the landscape aesthetically and, the way the natural flow of it works. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of thought put into this, and I think the amendment makes sense. And I think that overall it will benefit Silt. So I would vote yes on the amendment at this point.
So what would it be your feedback to Mr. Mayor's latest comment and idea? Is just something that you're not willing to look at it at this point, given all the time?
Within the application and the way that things are laid out, we do provide an easement down to eventually connect under that bridge if possible. For us, I think it's often easy to conflate being a large outside developer or not. We have thought about the feasibility of that, and I have been under that bridge multiple times myself. And I think it is, it's going to be a challenging engineering system. And what we have said is we're providing the footprint to eventually do that, should that become possible.
It's really based upon that bridge being replaced, right? So that's a county bridge. That's the demarcation between city and county property. And should that bridge get replaced and allow higher, headspace and more thoughtful, secure engineering under it, we're already there ready to connect. It's already all been laid out. But until that happens, it's really not workable.
If it doesn't happen with this project, the town pays for it. That's what it comes down to. We've recently looked at a multimodal path going down the river. It's going to go down the river and cross at grade with a busy intersection.
And as part of the negotiations, we're providing $20,000 as part of our fees to help offset any connectivity in the interim.
I think it's a great project.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But we need to do the best we can for our citizens. We need to quit pushing things off and saying, we can do this down the road.
I would also say additionally, when it comes to the town of Silt being able to do things, adding new rooftops, the additional commercial that we have talked about, and event center and other things like that would allow for more revenue for the town. And I also would note that once we do get build out of our restaurant and our event center and things like that, it may be something that we are directly involved in going forward because we want greater access. At this point, it is just something that I think given the bridge and things like that, we don't feel like should be a part of this particular step.
Overall, I think it's a great project. I think it is a good benefit to the town of Silt. And in the long run, it will be a great benefit for the town. But at the same time, I agree with the mayor, because I remember the first go around, I was, one of the people who was adamant about, having a path underground just because that intersection is a dangerous intersection. And I understand it doesn't necessarily follow the town's comprehensive plan. But the comprehensive plan is basically a guide. It's not the law. And yes, we should follow the comprehensive plan, because what's the point of doing it if we don't follow it? But in terms of the housing, I can live with the housing, because it does seem that there's a greater demand for housing right now than there is commercial space. So I can live with that. And I'm still torn, because I see the benefits. It's good for the town, but
it's an exciting project. There's a lot of great parts of it, but when you're adding
160 to 220 or however many households. Those are a lot of people that, as we've had people in front of us from the tiny home sect, talking about interconnectivity and transportation and having ways to be able to access the town safely. There's this just would, I mean, that, as they said, it's a busy intersection now. They're talking about being a dangerous intersection now. That's before this is added. Once you add this, that's going to put a huge strain on that section of it.
We're actually adding a lot of safety measures to that particular intersection, including flashing beacons and painted, permanent crosswalk markings.
And some of those things, and that's, I mean, those are all, but that's where I think the mayor's big thing about having some kind of a better connection for that. But also it's just over to the town. I mean, have you guys looked at having, working with RAFTA as far as having any kind of a stop over there at some point or anything like that? I don't know how that would work though, as far as bus turnaround, any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
If you had the connectivity from there over to the south side where eventually maybe the pedestrian bridge will land, there, where that plan is, there's some things like that would possibly be, but
I would love, I mean, I just don't think we're at the step yet to talk to RAFTA, but I would love to have a RAFTA stop there. It would be great.
I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, with commercial, we can't fill our own downtown. So what makes you think we're going to fill all that over there?
Didn't say I was going to fill their commercial space. It's
so
definitely a concern.
so for this project to succeed, it'll have to be, more housing and less commercial. But I still personally I would like to see a tunnel underneath that county road, just because we are going to have all of these units.
But is it their obligation to do that? I mean, I think as part of negotiations, we were looking at that, but then there's the parkland dedication, there's the money they're turning over, and there's things like that. So I think our staff is recommending approval because they've negotiated what they think is fair. And some of that stuff I think is maybe beyond the scope of, that might be overly onerous on the developer to say, well, now here's the edge of your property, so we're going to make you fix just to the next of it. I mean,
yeah, I'm just saying, and maybe a path under the bridge is less expensive than a tunnel. But
it
yes,
sounds like
I
they're
am
making it
concerned about the connectivity and the amount of people that are going to be there.
I'm concerned about setting a precedent so that we have the ability to create the connectivity and we're not foreclosed from that later on. And I feel like this still allows for that.
Yeah.
So that I'm comforted by that. I agree that it's not the safe, but I mean, people can go around. We have places in Silt that aren't fully groomed yet.
Yeah, true, yes. I agree. And I guess, I mean, let me get off the subject of the path for a second. So I guess and I understand this is somewhat flawed. It's not perfect, and there is a lot of discussion and everything and about agreeing. So is town staff happy with what we have here? I mean, I know you recommended approval, but I'm just trying to help form my decision.
I think based upon the facts that have been presented to us, working with the developer and the developer's team, I think we've gotten to where we need to be. I think, when we look at the concept plan that was once looked at, where this was going to be first floor commercial throughout, second and third floor residential, kind of on the spirit of the comp plan, that was probably an untenable development based upon the demographics and what we have in the town of Silt. When you start to kind of morph it down to the event center, the lodging, 10,000 square feet of commercial on tract 3, it balances out with the property where you've got the commercial component, you've got the residential component. Both things we need in this town. So I think we've gotten to a point where it is balanced and it is something that we can support. We can argue that it meets the spirit of our comprehensive plan. We are having a valuable tract of land deeded to the town that's going to be passive open space. You've heard me talk about time and time again over the fact that as much of the river that we can preserve, we need to preserve. I'd take the whole island. I'd buy the other half of the island if we could, just to keep it as open space and preserve for public use. I think, based upon some of the changes we made to the language of the PUD guide, the parkland dedication, the trail situation where we're getting it down to the river, we're getting the improvements along the frontage road, we're getting the improvements along 311 road. These are all positive things. The developer has represented time and time again that the 10,000 square feet on track 3 is the minimum, that it may be larger than that. They have also represented on tracks 5 and 6 that there will probably be ancillary commercial development that occurs that is going to be outside just the hotel and just outside the event center that are also going to be a benefit to the town. When you look at the overall economic benefit, as you read my memo, my staff report, this is a significant increase in tax revenues based on averages that will be realized by the town. Doesn't even include the economic impact of the event center, the restaurant, or the lodging, which are all, again, going to be benefits. I think the vision of the proponents is remarkable. I think, it's going to be something that is going to be great for the town of Silt. We do lose a little bit. We've got that great space right now that's open to the public that people love. That's going to change, but it's also going to provide something different in terms of a destination for people to go to. So I think, we've negotiated the best that we can up to this point. I understand, the mayor's concerns about the connectivity going to the west and a grade separation for that trail system, safety, et cetera. Maybe there's a way to do it easily. I don't know. Director Lundin might have an opinion on that. But it's something I think ultimately we're going to end up looking at. But I think we have, in good faith, worked with the proponents to get to where we are today. And I think, we are in a position where we're recommending approval.
2 notes to follow up on that, Mr. Manager. One, I think we do envision keeping the current spot kind of as it is current spot for the foreseeable future as like when there's not events or things like that. The second thing is the bridge to Tract 8A will be a significant undertaking in and of itself to provide access to that now deeded land. That channel will take some challenges to cross, working with the Corps and everybody else, riparian rules and everything like that. So I think that is a pretty significant thing that we've committed to make sure that the town and all of its residents get access to a greater portion of the river corridor and others. I take the mayor's point in terms of the connectivity, but I think right now it's a challenge for us to see.
And I guess the same question for you guys. I mean, granted, it's not perfect, but are you guys happy with everything that's been?
I think we've landed on a very good solution.
I would say I think there's been a ton of work done by both sides.
Yeah, that's
Both parties have worked and balanced as much as they can. You may in the future decide that bridge over to the island, you'd rather do the other thing that the mayor's talking about. But
perhaps.
But having that a bridge to the island, obviously, for you guys to use that other section too, adds benefit for you guys. It's not like it's just for that. The bridge would also allow people to access the rest of the island. But again, that's a huge thing. I think that, I'm supporting the town staff because I do feel like that they have worked their tails off on this. As you guys, I'm not saying that you guys did. And to be honest, it's good to hear that there's been a lot of give and take and a lot of some frustrations on both sides, to be honest.
Yep.
Because if everybody walks in and is like, yeah, it's great, thanks, bye.
It's like, what happened? What happened?
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So I think they say, when both people are super happy with the deal, then maybe it wasn't a good deal.
Yep.
So I think that we've done the best. The town staff and you guys have done a great job of working together to try to come up with the best we can for this place.
And I guess Director Lundin, how do you feel? Because ultimately you guys would probably be maintaining it.
Well, I agree with the mayor that trails go underwater part of the year. And that's why you have a public works crew to maintain them. And yeah, I believe it is feasible to get that trail underneath the
Do you
bridge.
feel it's feasible to do a box culvert north of the bridge?
That is also feasible. I think the trail under the bridge would be more cost efficient, but the tunnel would be easier to maintain.
I have two concerns. Primarily, I agree with the mayor. First of all, I think if we're saying the developer isn't going to pay for something, we're saying the citizens are. And that's a difficult argument for me to make. Like the mayor, I am here to serve the needs of the people, not here to serve the needs of developers. But I appreciate that it's a negotiation and we all lose a little and gain a lot ultimately in the end. My bright red line is that there's no tying together or timing requirement for commercial and residential development. Under the current model, they could build all of the housing and the commercial would happen someday maybe. And to me, that just means it won't get built until it's economically feasible or advantageous that the developer will do it. And if we really want this to have commercial value, we need to tie those outcomes to the PUD. The other concern I have, and I don't have even a slight knowledge that this would ever happen, but this is our one chance to get the PUD right, because at some point, the developer may sell it to someone else. And they may not have the same intentions. They may not have the same links to the community and things of that nature. This document is enforceable by whomever holds it. We need to keep that in mind.
And so again, the action item is the zoning. We then have a discussion item, and it's not that they have to be really distinct from each other, but the discussion item is to give feedback on things like you're talking about. Things that would go in agreements. I do want to make sure that the board saw the memo in the packet from my office that discussed, for lack of a better term, carrots and sticks.
I was gonna say, I'm much more favorable to the incentive-based.
And we can talk about that in more detail. We're happy to do that. You know, it has also been an issue that the staff has thought a lot about. The stick-based approach would be to say that you know, that there would be certain timing requirements to meet commercial development progress. And if that progress was not made, you would stop issuing a certain type of permit. Usually it would be a building permit. The challenge with that in this situation is that the applicant has been upfront that there's two parties in this arrangement. There is the two gentlemen who are sitting in front of you whose goal it is to develop the commercial and the event center, and then there is this separate group that specializes in developing the residential component. That's their job. They build multifamily residential. And it at least warrants a serious discussion about what the impacts are if you have separate ownership of the residential from the commercial, and then what happens in the event that the commercial doesn't meet its build-out targets, and the entity that gets penalized for that is the buyer of the residential, and does that allow this development to move forward as the applicants have attempted to structure? That's the stick side.
I'm concerned if it gets too punitive, like we cut people off at the knees. You know what I mean? But but sorry, continue.
The carrot side, which is something Jim and I have talked quite a bit about, the town doesn't have a lot of leverage with certain financial aspects that, that the town charges, in large part because what's the main thing a developer pays? Well, they pay water and sewer fees, improvement fees. We just bonded for a brand new water treatment plant. We are required to pay, or to have developers pay the full charge on the water fees. We are looking at having to do some important improvements to the water treatment plant. We need to be collecting water treatment plant improvement fees. The one area where the town, it's not to say we don't lose out, but it is a more palatable way of helping create an incentive for developers when they build public improvements, is to use our URA structure, Urban Renewal District structure, to help finance some of the public improvements. And public improvements has a bit of a broad category. It's streets, it's curb and gutter, it can be drainage, it can be landscaping, it certainly can be like the trail along the frontage road and the other recreational trails that would be developed. And if the property is eventually included in the urban renewal district, the developers of the commercial, we usually really only give urban renewal authority incentives to commercial development, not residential development. They would have a period of time to benefit from partial public improvement reimbursement through the URA, through what's called tax increment financing.
Yeah.
And the tax increment financing essentially sets the value of the property as it exists pre-development, and right now it's zoned agricultural, so that value is really, really, really low. And that as development happens in Colorado, because of the Gallagher Amendment and certain constitutional structures we have, there is a large percentage of the tax burden which is shifted to commercial development. And as the commercial development happens, the cleft between the base valuation and the developed valuation for property tax purposes becomes available to repay public improvement costs for the developer. And so the incentive there, okay, and so what's the cost? The cost really falls on the town, because that difference in property tax is going to reimburse for public improvements, meaning it's not coming into the town finance department. That's true for the town, it is true for the county, and it is true for other kind of special districts. The school district generally gets protected through that process. But it provides a revenue stream, again, to facilitate public improvement development, and the motivating thing would be to say, listen, we are willing to make TIF financing available for you 10 years after the plat is recorded. In other words, there becomes a bit of a race to get that commercial development constructed, because that's when the TIF financing kicks in, once the valuation increases. And the sooner that happens, the quicker that the TIF financing goes to help the developer repay some of those costs. And so that, as Jim and I have talked, that really is the from the carrot side of things, we think the best opportunity to create a strong incentive for the commercial residential linkage is to say, listen, if you get this commercial up and running and establish some benchmarks for how that would occur, you're going to benefit financially, because we're going to help pay for some of the public improvements on the property.
recall that from the presentation we had about that hotel. Yes.
And believe you and me, if you've been outside and not in a brick and mortar in the wind in the last couple of days, we are pretty eager to get a full structure up.
The Colorado weather.
Yes.
It can be great a lot of times.
Give it 30 minutes.
Easy ups aren't fun out there.
Well,
in the
we're
wind?
just happy that they haven't become kites yet.
I was gonna say.
That's surprising after last weekend.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, put a path on under the bridge and I'll vote yes.
And Sheila was able to pull up the map. It's on page 42 of the packet that shows the current trail system that was agreed to.
I think the town staff did a good job negotiating the terms, and I support their recommendation to approve it, personally.
And again, I want to focus, the motion there will be a motion at some point, is on the PUD. So the first reading of the ordinance for the zoning. Nicole has, in particular in her memo, gone into quite a bit of detail about the zoning changes. The ordinance with the PUD guide is in your packet. We're happy to answer any questions about particular verbiage. You have as options, you could, so again, this is first reading, this is an ordinance, has to come back to you for a second reading. You could move to continue on first reading. You could move for approval with specific conditions. Those conditions would then be direction to your staff to do certain things between first and second reading. So in other words, you could add additional conditions to the ones that Nicole has proposed. You could make a motion to deny, or you could make a motion to approve. We would recommend with the conditions that staff has presented at a minimum, but you could also, I guess, delete some or all of those proposed conditions if you did not feel they were warranted.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the final plat and PUD amendment for the Roslinde Plan Unit Development as presented by staff.
Public hearing? Isn't there a public?
Yeah.
Oh, do we have to?
Yes, the
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem makes a very good point. This is a
I
public
apologize.
hearing.
Yeah, if that's all the discussion from the board, then I will open up the public hearing, so. The time is 8:43 PM, and I'll open up the public hearing for ordinance number 5, series 2025. An ordinance approving the major subdivision final plan, final plat, and PUD amendment for the Roslinde Planned Unit Development. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir, I did not hear from anyone.
Okay.
I do not have any raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
All right. All right, would anybody in the public like to speak to this agenda item? Okay, all right, seeing none, the time is 8:44 PM, and I will open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
I do have some concerns about the reduction in commercial development. I think, Trustee Clausen, you made the point that we can't get businesses on Main Street, and maybe in 5 years we will. This is forever. You're saying we're not going to build those commercial that
I don't want to
space for
split
commercial
up
over there.
downtown. I don't want to have people going over there. I want to keep people downtown on our main street for commercial. I don't really want people going other places. That's why I don't like the post office and the trade center, because it takes people that way, doesn't keep people here in downtown.
But at some point, they're going to need more than one space, right? And with that many citizens over there, presumably they're going to want some stuff closer and to not have to use the future pedestrian overpass over the highway, fingers crossed.
This is how we help
get
get
to
that
those
pedestrian
services.
pass going, hey, we got, 500 new residents here. We need this pedestrian bridge.
I
Yeah.
agree, and I don't think the two outcomes are mutually exclusive. My point is, this PUD is forever. So we're saying, we're all agreeing that we're saying a couple of things here, right? We're okay with there being significantly scaled down commercial. We're okay with there being no underpass or pedestrian pathway underneath.
I mean, the trade center PUD is forever, and look at how many empty lots are out there, and it's getting close to being out there for 30 years now.
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, actually, this is not reducing commercial. It's a lower footprint of a floor.
In tract 3?
Well, in
across the whole
3,
development?
but across the whole development, there was actually the previous iteration of this was actually a ceiling on commercial that only up to 50% of the square footage in any of this could be commercial.
And that's in the existing PUD?
Correct. So it was that no more than 50% of the square footage in any of the multi-use tracts could be commercial. What we are doing now is we're actually switching simply to having meeting in the middle between 8,000 and 12,000 on the minimum square footage build out on 3. But the PUD has actually said that it was like no more than 50% could be commercial. Now in our square footage right now, we don't have a cap or a floor on 5 or 6 or 3, aside from that 12,000 one. So as Town Manager Mann pointed out, like we had seen that the requirement for commercial or retail on the bottom was not economically feasible given the size and scale of the housing. And so what we had envisioned always was mixing it across the whole PUD, not requiring it within the at that point multi-use tracks. So it's actually, there's no difference in reduction as we would see it. It's just that they're delegated to separate tracks rather than being on the multi-use tracks.
And I'm still gonna agree that if the developer doesn't pay for it, the citizens do, and that's what, when you look at town right now, all the residential that has no sidewalk in front of it was because they let a developer get away without building sidewalks. And now we're using the citizens' tax dollars to go back and put sidewalks in it. These opportunities come once, and then they're gone. I don't think town staff, I don't think the developers actually sat down and put a cost to a underpass. I think it was the water's high, it's unfeasible. So
you feel there should be additional discussions? Continue having discussions regarding that particular point?
I would love to see an actual cost figure on it. It's the carrot and the stick thing. The carrot is 63 more residential units. So we want an underpass. We're giving something to get something.
So I think I would state that I would disagree with you in terms of our intentions. We have not cost figured out that bridge to 8A, but we're committed to it. It was just so to say it's $1 a number rather than our assertion that it, as we see it, is untenable or unfeasible. I think we would just disagree on that. That bridge is not going, like the infrastructure within the PUD is not going to be a cheap thing. And so to assert that it's just a dollars and cents thing, I think is perhaps misleading.
And so what is the offsite trail connector improvement contribution fee?
That's the $20,000.
So explain that. What is that?
So when this discussion happened a couple of years ago, and we all agreed that it wasn't workable to either go under the bridge or to build a tunnel, that the agreement was to require us to pay $20,000, basically at the time of recordation, I think it's going to be due, right? And what that allows the town to do is to connect the end of the existing sidewalk down there by the Holiday Inn, right? So that sidewalk that runs there right by the water and ends short, 20 feet short of the underpass there, right? To connect that point north all the way to the intersection of 311 and the frontage road, so that there is now that connectivity. And then all of the requisite safety and signage and things like that that need to happen.
Yeah, so it was at the surface to put the flashing lights.
Yeah, it was
And
at the
across-
intersection, yeah.
There's $20,000 is not gonna get us a sidewalk from where the Holiday Inn ends up to the frontage road.
So maybe we could ask that they spend a little more time negotiating that point if you don't feel like that's adequate compensation for not getting that underpass.
I'm hooked, I want an underpass. It was on the original development at this parcel had that, and these developers took it out. And when it came up, I have personally voted no on it twice, because I think it's that important to get a separation between pedestrians and cars. We've already had a person killed on our overpass. So why would we have an opportunity, would we potentially set that situation up again? This is a development that's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're talking about an underpass to keep citizens safe. 220 some homes, we're talking $2,000 per house if that underpass costs $500,000. It's a costly project, but when you spread it out over a whole development, it's minimal.
Well, I appreciate you making up a number in your head, but I do not think that this whole thing is going to hit that number.
Well, I guess, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve this as written with the exception of adding a path underneath the bridge.
So you're adding a condition.
A condition, yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Clausen to approve ordinance number 5, series 2025, an ordinance approving a major subdivision final plan, final plat and PUD amendment for the Rosalinda planned unit development as presented with the condition of adding an underpass.
Yes.
I will second that motion. All's in favor?
Aye.
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 All's opposed?
Do we need to do a roll call?
We need to roll call vote that one, please. Can we roll call vote, please, Sheila?
You may want to discuss it first before you take a vote.
That motion also includes all of Nicole's conditions,
Yeah,
correct?
as
All of-
presented,
Yes.
yeah.
As presented,
As
thank you.
presented, yes.
Yeah, I'm just adding
Adding the
that
condition of an
that one
underpass.
item.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That's the motion I seconded. Okay. We did a motion, a second, and a vote. So,
Are you ready for a roll call, or did you want to have discussion?
I'm good.
I'm good, roll
I
call
mean,
vote.
I guess just adding the condition or discussion about adding the condition, just adding it.
The motion
The motion
as
was
made would
to-
add a condition to approval on first reading to have a underpass under the bridge.
Okay, so I think we're ready for the roll call now.
Trustee Poston?
Aye.
Trustee Engelhardt?
Aye.
Trustee Klassen?
Aye.
Trustee Brittenell?
Aye.
Pro Tem Hanrahan?
Aye.
Mayor Reichel?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Okay. This is the first reading. So we have one more after this.
We have one more after this, and this does play into the components of the subdivision improvement agreement, so it'll be something that we will need to be discussing with the applicants. The board, again, received drafts of the amendment to the annexation agreement, a draft of the subdivision improvement agreement, memo about incentives and other compulsory requirements about developing commercial. Do we have anything else in there that we were looking to see if anybody had any comments on at this stage? The idea is we would like to be able to bring to you as fully drafted as possible versions of these agreements for your next meeting.
Scrolling down through here trying to find where we're at.
65.
65, right there. Okay.
I mean, I saw that one point about asking for feedback about how to move things along, and like I said, I'm more favorable to incentive-based. Generally, I'm more favorable to an incentive-based approach unless someone's like a habitual rule breaker because they're inconsiderate. Otherwise, I think, I just prefer the carrot over the stick, I suppose. And especially if it becomes inhibiting to the developer more than encouraging, but I think it depends on the circumstances, but this seems like there's been a lot of negotiations going on, so I also want to try and respect that.
I don't have anything specific to discuss or bring back. I have a feeling that tonight's PUD decision might spur conversations with the developer, and we'll have to see where that goes.
Does an incentive structure require the developer to build the commercial specifically?
It does not require, it incentivizes. In other words, if you take 5 years in the example that I used, where you would have a repayment period of 10 years of tax increment financing. If you wait until year 5 to build the commercial, you lose 5 years of potential repayment.
So they would get that, they have 10 years that they would have access to that money, but if they haven't built out by 10 years, then they get none of it.
Correct.
Versus if they do it earlier, yeah.
And 10 years is just an example.
No, I understand. It's nothing that's been negotiated or stuff, yeah.
And one thing, when you're looking at tax increment financing and the use of a district, you have to remember that you build it 1 year, gets valued the next year, and the taxes are received the year after that. So there's a window of time where you're building it, it gets valued, and then you receive taxes on it. And so you kind of have to take that into consideration when you model out what dollar amount you would be talking about and what would be included, et cetera.
But isn't that more just to move the timelines along? Because we do have it saying 10,000 square feet minimum on track 3, right? I mean, isn't it just more about speeding the process up?
Yes, we do have the minimum on track 3, but there isn't anything on tracks 5 or 6 for the event center or the lodging.
And to Trustee or Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan's point, there's not a linkage. There could be an incentive linkage, but not a regulatory linkage between the commercial and the residential development.
So the homes could all get built and they could simply forego the economic benefits or the cost reductions of doing the commercial development,
I mean,
theoretically.
yes, and to a little bit of a degree, no. Which is to say, I mean, this isn't really the town's purview, but generally when you go borrow $7 million of money to build public improvements, and you're going to have to bond that and warranty it with the town, there is a very strong incentive to get your stuff moving sooner as opposed to later, because you are paying debt service on the infrastructure. So that there is an internal inertia toward development.
Is there any tool to even make sure that the residential gets moving in a timely fashion? So that we don't just have another approved subdivision sitting there for multiple years?
I think the proponents will probably can speak to this better than we can, but typically the residential comes before the commercial.
Right.
The rooftops are the important part when you start looking at the commercial aspects. And when we talk with larger retailers and locating in Silt, they always talk about the number of rooftops that are around. And so that's an important factor. I mean, I think the chances are the residential happens relatively quickly. Adam.
Is he on?
I don't believe Adam is on. But in conversations, he's indicated that they would like to be building next year, vertical. They're that invested in the development that's their intention.
Well, and their costs are only going up every year that they don't.
And residential developers recognize that there's a need in this region for housing, and in particular, the type of housing that they're looking at building.
Yeah, usually I would let Adam Wallace of Page West answer this question, but I think, my understanding with them is that upon approval, final plat and everything else, that they are working right now in tandem to be able to put application and site plans in front of you as soon as possible. The other thing, just on the timing, a note for timing, is we would be coming after the residential just because of the feasibility, like the ordering of infrastructure and things like that. We are also very eager to have rooftops so that we can have a restaurant and not be in a tent by the river anymore. So we are very fully committed to this and would want to be breaking ground as soon as possible on the restaurant for sure, but also the event center. We have a lot of requests for weddings that we have to turn down right now.
Okay. Is there anything, Nicole, that you can think of that?
No, I think staff's biggest concern is just ensuring that the PUD was written in a way that required commercial. And, we've talked about it. If the 2008 recession hit again and all of a sudden there was no building going on, could somebody else come in the future and purchase that and come back in for a PUD amendment and try to transition all of it to residential? So our primary goal and focus was to ensure the viability of whatever commercial space we could in that location, deeming that the comprehensive plan has it listed as commercial and service-based. So I think any elements we can put in place, whether it be carrots or carrots and sticks or one or the other, that it would be really pushing the commercial drive to ensure that that gets built.
Okay. I think with this applicant, that's the biggest, I mean, that's the biggest part that you guys have a buy-in
Yeah.
to is the commercial. I mean,
Yeah, no.
but another developer coming in and moving forward with that.
Yeah,
you
we're
guys
just
are-
waiting for the residential, so yes.
Okay. I guess the only part of this presentation, I guess, would be that in the brochure, it says the 7 for sale single-family lots on the river will attract long-term homeowners. Is there anything that's going to prevent them from being a rental property?
We would be doing that, and one of those 7 would be us. So that's part of the plan. And we have a couple of others, people who have partnered with us, are looking to partner with us to make sure that they would be their homes as well. So
it's not necessarily like a deed restricted thing where you can't sell it for 5 years or anything. It's just
no,
the
I mean
intention
we
is
haven't
to sell it.
contemplated that.
Okay.
No, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
I want a walkability to work.
Hard to call in sick when you live in. Okay. Yeah, I've got nothing else.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Well, we will, we've got some tasks ahead of us, but our intention is to be back in front of you on, help me here, Nicole?
July 14th.
July 14th, thank you. And at that time, we will have second reading of the PUD. We will have a resolution to approve the final plat. We will have a resolution to approve an amendment to the annexation agreement, and we will have a resolution to approve a subdivision improvement agreement. And we kind of pick those off in order. We start with the PUD guide, because if you don't have zoning, the rest of the documents don't really matter too much. And then work our way through.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here tonight.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
You guys have a good night. So next up is the May 2025 financial report. And we will turn this over to Treasurer Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So 41% of the year has gone by quite swiftly, I might say. We are on track for our sales tax revenue at 46.3%. Our use tax is still down a little bit at 37.3%. Trash, water, wastewater, irrigation fees are all right in line with the budgeted revenues that we had anticipated. We are 14.3% higher in our sales tax revenue than what we had anticipated, which is good from last year. If you look at the Silt Housing Authority, we have caught up on our revenues because they paid their rents. We've got 2 rents in these financials. And everything else looks pretty good as far as expenditures go and revenues go, and I'll answer any questions that you might have of me.
Okay. All right. Any questions on the budget? The financial report, I guess, not budget. Yeah. We're almost busy.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Be careful what you wish for.
Treasurer Tucker?
Who's wishing?
Okay.
I would just point out that if we continue on track with our sales tax revenues, that we'll be at about 1.9 million of sales tax revenue versus 1,665,000 budget. So that would be a good thing. Still a little too early to start spending that money, though. Joe.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Thank you, Treasurer Tucker.
You're welcome.
Next up, manager and staff comments.
I have nothing really to add this evening.
Okay. All right. Any other staff? Anything they want to add?
I just want to, we're having a meeting on 8th Street tomorrow evening with the residents, so just to answer, and then hopefully we'll come up with a decision to bring to the board what we'll end up doing on 8th Street after that meeting.
Okay.
Is your meeting up
Which-
there? Or?
It's here.
Which I would say we'll anticipate having something on the agenda on the 14th of July. That answers your question.
Okay.
What's the time for that?
Between 5:30 and 6:30.
That's tomorrow?
That's tomorrow.
And I can't make that, unfortunately, I'm sorry.
But if more than 3 of us show up,
I was going to ask that. I wasn't sure how that works.
Then we can't talk.
yeah.
I guess I'll just jump in that I will not be there, just because I feel as a board member that we have directed staff to complete a project, and so that's what they should be doing. If citizens have concerns about it, then we have the public comments to address those at. But I feel like it's, if I was to go to that meeting, I feel like I'm stepping on the people's toes that we have put in those positions.
No, I'm not going to go there either. I just curious.
I'll be there. I appreciate what you're saying, but I think it's more important to meet the people where they are and hear from them directly. And I don't think, or I hope, and I'll leave it up to them to say in public or private whether or not they feel like it's stepping on their toes, but I think if the people ask us to listen to them, we should meet them where they are. And I don't think, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, I have walked up 8th Street and taken a look around and stuff. I mean, I have done that.
Okay. Well, I look forward to the update, though.
What I did today is I marked off where it is feasible to go halfway in between. Because a lot of people have been looking at the corner, but it's like, well, what is it that they're asking and what is it she's talking about? So I did try to mark that off if anybody, you can't miss these pieces of yellow rope that are tied all over the place. So if you want to give it a value, I really want this to get settled so that Joe, our director, Lundin, can move on and really get this going right. So I really, if we're not gonna do an on-site walk, I'd sure appreciate it. If just go take a look. I didn't try to kind of mark it off.
Okay.
I will go look
We'll
at
look
it
forward
tomorrow.
to Joe's report. So, okay.
Jim, I was going to add, based on your manager's report, that I am willing and able to join the subgroup for the branding stuff. I'll volunteer myself whenever that group is formed.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to make it to Misty's Coffee next week.
It was today, and it'll be Wednesday.
In that case, this week.
Yeah, we're skipping tomorrow because Misty said the crowds are better on Wednesday.
I have something else to do this week.
Okay.
I mean, did you have a good crowd today?
We did actually have a very good conversation with a number of folks that came in and got some pretty good feedback. So it was well worth the effort.
Nice.
Is there a second volunteer?
When is it again?
No. A second volunteer to be on the subgroup.
I could be, I would like to be on that subgroup.
There's your second volunteer.
Okay.
That was enthusiastic.
There.
My husband's gonna
There.
kill me. I
That
keep
was
signing up
motion.
for these for
She was thinking about
subgroups,
having to
and
work with me
I'm
on
going
it.
to the conference Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So getting involved. It's good. I'm excited. I just, like I said, it's my husband's. I'm gonna have to just be like, more pizza.
No pizza. Early morning meetings.
Not for us. She's
Oh,
talking about for
okay.
him for dinner.
Yeah, it's pizza night. I'm out.
Okay. Then we'll jump into updates from the board and board comments. Trustee Poston?
Mirroring Trustee Engelhardt, I will also be attending the Colorado Municipal League Conference in Breckenridge this year, hoping to just bring a lot of knowledge, feedback, and so we can continue to help improving our lovely Silt town. Part of the discussions today reflected some of the board's priorities that mirror a lot of the comments that citizens have made a point to come in to the board to say walkability is a priority for a lot of people, and being able to go from point A and point B. And I'm really happy that the board is able to voice what mirrors what's priority for the citizens of Silt. And I want for us to continue to do that as a board. It's great to go out in the community too and just get a feel for the community and get feedback. I think that's great. I won't be able to go since I'll be gone tomorrow, but thanks for the trustees that are able to be out there. And I do just want to reemphasize that the way that we operate as the board of trustee, always saying how we feel, what our real concerns are, and what we are seeing that the residents want, and coming as a body and being able to voice that opinion is very, very important for the work that we do. That's all I have to say.
All right. Trustee Engelhardt?
Yeah. Going to the conference for a couple days, the CMO conference, and I am excited. And my only, my only concern is just choosing my involvement wisely, because there's so many cool things, and it's really fun to be on this board and to be able to help in this way, because it's really a lot of interesting stuff. So I look forward to the conference, learn more stuff. And then I'm going to book it back on Friday for the Queen Bees.
Yeah, I bet you're
Try to
excited
make
about that.
I am. I try to never miss them.
All right. Trustee Britnell?
Yeah, the concert's Friday night. Should be a lot of fun again. We're having the food trucks and stuff again, right?
We are, and it's a locals highlight with 2 local bands.
Yeah, it'll be really great. And then in addition to that, of course, there'll be a group of people playing horseshoes down at the horseshoe pits. We were there last time, but there was a concert, and the people playing, as the concert was ending, people still playing shoes. But we also, some of those people went up, got food. So having all that availability is great. Good community event.
Nice. Trustee Clausen?
I just want to thank everybody who spent all that hard work getting the Resenley, approved. And I know it was many meetings and, many hours of back and forth. And yeah, I just wanted to thank town staff for it, P&Z. And I wanted to thank all the citizens that actually came out and voiced their opinion over it. And that's all I have tonight.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thanks to Planning and Zoning. From the people who just ended their time. I'm looking at the seats and remembering who they are. Vanessa, Jennifer, Eddie, who's staying on. Of course, under Lindsay's leadership, Michael, who's also staying on. Justin and Dana, who I think is also stepping or has stepped down. Or she's still on.
Dana's still on.
Dana's still on. I'm sorry.
She-
Stick around, Dana. And also to the noobs on planning and zoning, this is effectively what you saw tonight, a lot of what you signed up for. So we appreciate all the time and effort and heart that you're going to put into it, because obviously we need it as a community. So thank you. That's it.
All right. I'm going to say thank you to staff again. I know we didn't make your jobs any easier tonight, but we appreciate everything that you guys do for us. So next item is adjournment.
Jerry usually does. Mr.
I know.
Seifert
Go
usually
ahead.
does. Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Motion to adjourn by Trustee Engelhardt, second by Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Silent adjournment.